Hello, everyone, and welcome to another PorscheCooled Podcast. My name is Michael Barth. This is the podcast where I just chat about things Porsche. I currently have a YouTube channel, if you haven't seen it already, where I talk about my Porsche 997 Carrera, 2006 997.1 Carrera, which I've owned since, 2017 I've owned that car. So that's on my YouTube channel. YouTube channel is just Michael Barth. If you punch that into the username, that will come up. I will put the link, or the link is in this podcast, at the bottom of this podcast. But today I thought I'd just chat about the 996 again. The 996, before I purchased my 997. 997 is from 2004. Those of you who are not familiar with Porsche, those of you who know about Porsche will know what a 997 is. The 996 was the model preceding the 997. The 996 had a little bit of a rough time, actually. And I talked about this in a previous podcast about how I think 996 values are increasing. But the 996 had a rough life. It had a rough life because when it was introduced, it followed the air-cooled Porsches. And the air-cooled Porsches really did have, quite a following. They've been around for a long time, and all of a sudden here you get a new 911 that's been introduced. It's got weird headlights. It's got the fried egg headlights, which even to this very day, people that buy 996s who are appreciating 996s, and this is just from stuff I've seen over the web, but even people that have bought them saying they still don't love the headlights. I don't think they're that bad. Obviously, they're better when they don't have the redesign, the slightly redesigned shape that was slightly different, I think, for the GT3 and for the Turbo. But it's had a bit of a rough life. But then in the 996, and I think this is probably why at the moment the values I wouldn't say they're low because they are obviously increasing, and I've noticed the increase since I've been looking at them, which has probably been the last, I hate to say it, 5 years. Which is a bit sad because, that's the other thing I want to talk about today is missed opportunities. You always feel like, you made a big mistake somewhere along the line and you should have bought something when you didn't. I have to say I'm a bit like that with the 996, and I've talked about this on my YouTube channel. The 996 is a very, very cheap 911. You can still get lower price ones in the the Carrera, the basic Carrera, or the Carrera 4. Carrera 4S's, they're rising in value. They're quite good, especially you get a manual version of the Carrera 4S. I really do like the 4S too. It is one of the cars I like. But what I wanted to talk about today is I want to talk about the, and also the 996 GT2. The GT2, for those of you who don't know, I'm from Australia and I'm currently based in Bahrain for work. But in Australia, there was a GT2 not that long ago with 15,000 kilometers that was selling for about 230,000. I noticed that it was bought by a dealer. I'm not going to mention the dealer's name, but I was bought by a dealer. Actually, the dealer where I bought my car from, so you can work it out, people of you that know me. And he put it up for 329,000 or something. So that was his insight into what it should be worth. There was another one at another dealer. I think it was Classic Throttle Shop in Sydney, and it was about 279, 269, and it sold quite quickly. The 996 GT2 was another good one to pick up. I think once again we've missed the boat on that one unless you have a lot of cash to spend. But what I want to talk about with the 996 is today I want to talk about the 996s that have, I guess they don't have the engine issue. The engine issue being the engine issue that also was transferred to the early models of the 997. The first batch of 997, the first orders, and then Porsche changed the IMS bearing over the next couple of years from the first one in 2005, and then I think they changed it in 2006, and then I think they might have changed it again, and then in the 0.2 version of the 997, they eradicated the IMS issue with an engineering change. The 996 is susceptible to the IMS bearing issue. There are other issues. I don't want to get into. It's not about talking about the issues in this podcast. It's just I guess pinpointing why there's certain models in the 996 that have been kept at a low value because of these overriding issues that people think impact all 996s. Even today, when I looked at an ad from Auto House Hamilton in Sydney that service my car, they actually had to put that. I think they got a 996 GT3 for sale there with the comfort seats, standard seats, no roll cage. Really nice example actually in silver. I'm going to get onto that later, but they had to say it doesn't suffer the same problems. And also, I think there was a 996 Turbo. I don't know whether it was at Auto House or it was another dealer. It was advertised. But the same thing again, they have to say it doesn't suffer the same fate as all the other 996 engines. And of course, people that own 996s will realize that they can do Auto House also has a Carrera 4S, and I think it's LN Engineering, is it? LN Engineering? Do a modification to upgrade the bearing to ensure you don't have the problem where your engine will just fail and blow up and cost you the replacement of a new engine. I'm not going to get too technical here, but that's basically the gist of it. So because of that, the values of 996s have remained quite low. They are getting a following now, and they're getting a following now because, let's be honest, they're over 20 years old. So that's probably the reason as well. They're becoming classic. They're a classic status. And I know a lot of people, well-known people, like I've said before, have been buying them up. People on YouTube, influencers, Magnus Walker, for example, has bought a couple. So this is all helping the interest of the GT3 of the 996 and people looking at it. Now, the thing that I'm interested in is I've always been interested in, and this is where I let the golden turkey get away, so to speak, is I'm interested in the 996 GT3 and I'm interested in the 996 Turbo. I like the Turbo, the second gen of the 996 Turbo, so I think it's from 2003 or something like that. And probably the second gen of the GT3 as well, which are all around, I think, 2003, I think the second one came out. I don't know if that's exactly the right date. I could look it up and be sure. I think it was 2004 model year. 996.2 was a 2.204 model year, and I think the Turbo was the same. Both have the Mezger engine, Mezger engine, and the GT3 obviously not a turbocharged engine as per the Turbo, but the 996 Turbo and the GT3 both have the Mezger derived engine. Obviously, the GT3 has, I guess, more power. I haven't driven either car. I've been in a 996 Carrera 4. My wife's boss used to own one, and I thought it was a pretty nice car. The 996 is weird. Like, you look at the pictures of it and images of it of the dash, and I think it looks pretty ugly. But when you sit in that car, I remember the day when I first drove in it, and I sat in the car. It still feels like a Porsche. It doesn't feel cheap. You know, sure, it's not the same as the 992 now or the 991s or like that, but it doesn't feel cheap. It just has a different styling, I guess. It's just a different styling inside. So the ones I let get away is that 2015 I was heavily thinking about buying a 911. At the time, I went back to university and I'd studied, and then I was, financially I probably wasn't ready for it, even though I was looking. So in the end, I didn't actually buy something. I didn't actually do it. I waited for another couple of years till I was more equipped to pay for it, because I wanted to pay cash for my car, and which is what I did with my 997. So at the time, there was quite a few GT3s coming up. The GT3s were selling for around 90,000 Australian dollars, 90 to 99,000 Australian dollars. I found quite a few good ones during that time, in red, in white, in grey, seal grey, I think, which was one of the few that was available in grey, or probably the only one delivered to Australia. Club Sport versions, really good models. As we know, the GT3s, and I missed out, and I didn't take it up. I then also started looking at turbos. And then I got information about turbos, about servicing costs and things like that. And at the same time, a lot of turbos came up. And those turbos were around low kilometer ones, I think I was finding. They were a little bit cheaper than the GT3s. They were probably 10,000, 12,000 Aussie cheaper than the GT3s. I think, excuse me, the one that I liked was about black one with low kilometers, and I think it was about 88,000 Australian dollars. At the time it didn't sell, it was sitting there for a long time. No doubt the buyer that bought this car got it at a bargain price. He obviously would have knocked a few grand off. So there were really good bargains to be had. And that appeal of the turbo and the GT3 still hasn't gone away. I'm still really interested in 996. And I have to say, I've been looking at Magnus Walker's 996 GT3, and if you haven't seen that, you should take a look at it. He's got a silver one, and this has been spurred on by the fact that a dealer in Australia, Autohouse Hamilton, has a 996 GT3 in silver for sale, with the comfort seats, not with the bucket seats, no roll cage, but in really good condition. So I'm thinking, what if you did what Magnus Walker did? You bought a 996, and you did modify it. You didn't think about keeping it original like future values, and you really modified it to the point where I guess it's still in essence a 911 996 GT3, but just made it that little bit more special. I really like what Magnus Walker did. I didn't realize, the decals, you should check out I think it's on his Instagram. I don't think he's on a YouTube channel, but it's on his Instagram, pictures of it. And he's put, a white racing number circle on the side. He's got blue sort of decals, and well, I thought they were decals, actually. I read that they're actually not decals, and he actually had it painted. It's actually properly painted, so it's not a decal. So he's got like blue stripes that go up to the front fenders. He's got some detailing on the bottom of the spoiler. I think it's a red color, or I think it's red or orange. He's got the white number, the white placard for the number, no number on it. And no doubt inside he's probably changed the steering wheel, and I haven't actually seen the inside of it. I think it's got racing buckets though. It probably does have a roll cage, and he's just made it that little bit more special, and it looks really, really good. So then I was thinking, buy a GT3 996, try and find one that's not too expensive, and do like an outlaw version of it, some kind of cool outlaw version of it, which I think would be a really good thing to do. Obviously keep all the original parts. The silver one that's for sale, silver ones that was got silver wheels, but I think Magnus Walker's got black wheels. Painting the wheels is easy. Add a really great steering wheel, change the exhaust, put a numeric shifter into it, short shifter. Maybe if it doesn't have the buckets, maybe buy the buckets, the original 996 buckets from maybe LA Dismantler or someone else used, or someone that has a used set. Take the seats out, get the seats fitted. So have the lightweight buckets. I think they're just normal buckets, aren't they? And really make it like a really special 996, one that you want to drive. And when I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about not selling my 997 Carrera. I'm still thinking about keeping it. So that's one option. That's something that I'm thinking about, like that. I think that would be a great thing to do. And it's like a little hobby and a little project. And like I said, don't go too crazy with the mods, but make it a unique 996 GT3. Don't keep it like it's precious and then drive it. Really, really drive the hell out of it. And do track days in it and stuff like that. I think that would be a great thing to do. And then the other side of the coin is the turbo. The turbo is really appealing. The turbo in Australian prices, and I'm not sure about UK or US, you can tell me in the comments. There's a really good yellow one for sale, which is a bit high. It's about 140,000 Australian dollars, which is probably equates to about 100,000 US. 70,000 pounds, say. Then there's other ones which you can get at around 100,000 Australian. 100,000 Australian, you'll get one with around 100,000 kilometers, I should say, in pretty good condition. I found a couple. Have been looking at them. I do like the idea of a turbo. I did see a car on Instagram yesterday, and I meant to save the image so I could talk about it today, but the guy had put a Momo steering wheel. He'd removed the seats and he'd put buckets in there, GT3 996 buckets, GT2 buckets. I think they're GT2 buckets, aren't they? Same as in the GT2. And then he'd done a few other things, and he's basically doing stuff to it, and it looks really good too. So that's the other option, the turbo. But I guess, do you want turbo, or do you want, or do you want non-turbo? I still think, ideally, I would prefer the GT3 over the turbo, but I do like the turbo body shape. I do like the look of it. I've always liked that car. Like I said, the GT3, the turbo, and the 4S are probably the picks. I'm sure there are other people's tops as well. The 4S is not something to overlook, though. Money-wise, they're not a lot cheaper though, because a really good one with lowish kilometers is about 90,000. I think to get a Carrera 4S, you'd be better to spend a little bit more money and get the bottom end of the turbo than actually buy a 4S. That's my thing. But the GT3 996, the one that Autohouse has, is about 140,000 Australian dollars. So it's quite a big jump from a turbo. In saying that, there's a couple of turbos for sale too with like 30,000, 25,000, 30 kilometers. Very well spec turbos, and they're wanting a lot, 165,000. So that's double at what I was looking at 5 years ago. So that's a pretty good investment for a low kilometer, well looked after, well spec'd 996 turbo, 996.2 turbo, I should say. But there are bargains to be had. There are lower prices ones. Like I said, I found one for 100,000 in a turbo, 100,000 kilometers. So that's the sort of one that I would look at if I was getting a turbo. Carrera 4S, like I said, they're about 80. There are some for about 70, high 70s. But the difference in the price, I think you would have to go a turbo over the 4S. And then you don't have to worry about the LN engineering, thing for the IMS. And one I was looking at had that done, but then I noticed on LN engineering they only guarantee that solution for 2 years. In the car, I noticed in the logbook the car had it fitted over 2 years ago, so maybe you'd have to do it again. And I'm guessing it's not super cheap to do. But I think, coming back, I think the GT3, and those of you who know me know that I really like the 997 GT3. A friend of mine has one. He's got a 0.1. He's had it for a few years, and it's a great 911. And I have been looking at 997s, except 997s are going up in price, and they're quite expensive. It feels like the 996 GT3s have bottomed out a little bit. They went up quite high here in Australia. At one point, even 80,000 kilometer cars were selling for high 100s, the 180, 190,000. That's why this one that I saw at Autohouse is at 140. And 140 is because it doesn't have the roll cage. It's not a club sport. It doesn't have the buckets, etc. But it's got really low kilometers. It's really looked after, and it's a one-owner car. It's actually a one-owner car, I think, from memory. And I really like the idea of doing the outlaw style. Sorry, Magnus, I don't want to copy you, but doing something like that where it's just modded up a little bit, easily reversible, but modded up so it really is a really great road warrior, track day weapon type of car. I really like to do something like that. And I think it'd be great as well because I could do videos on it and shoot it for my YouTube channel, which would be great. At the moment, I'm not making a lot of Porsche videos on my channel. My channel also looks at watches as well and tech and a little bit of travel, but it's mainly Porsche. But I am doing a lot of watch videos on that channel purely because I don't have a 911. I don't have a Porsche here in Bahrain. I'm actually driving a beat-up Audi A6, which has got lots of issues. But apparently it's too expensive to repair, the company that gave it to me, so it's just I just drive it, and it's just a piece of shit, really. So that's what I'm driving at the moment. But back to the GT3. Like I said, I think my choice would be the GT3. What would be your choice? Would you pick a GT3, or would you pick a turbo, or would you go for a 4S, or would you pick a base 996? I noticed Magnus Walker, I think, also bought a base 996 with an aero kit, red one with an aero kit. The aero kit looks okay on the 996. I know it's a GT3 type aero kit, but it looks pretty good. I think, the one priority, of course, with all of this, it has to be a manual. The 996 Turbo, I think a lot of people spec them in the auto, but you'd want to get a manual. And I think the 4S as well, a lot of people spec'd it in the auto at that time. GT3 obviously is manual. So I think it needs to be manual. Like I said, the GT3 would upgrade the shifter. Those of you who know me, I upgraded the shifter on my 997, and I had the choice whether to do numeric, which I'd actually driven for a very short period of time in my mate's 997 GT3. I'd already bought my shifter though, and it was hard for me to get used to the numeric due to the really short, clicky throw. I like the sound of it, but I think with time I could have got used to the short throw and getting used to that position where the gear is sitting relative when you're driving, when you just sort of glance down. So it was hard for me to work out the gears. and it was really, really short. So then when I got my 997 short shifter, it was I was a little bit disappointed actually because it didn't feel very short, but I was basing it on the numeric. But when he drove it, he actually said it's a lot tighter, and it is a lot tighter. It's a lot better, and that's the OEM Porsche short shifter. GT3, I would definitely get the numeric. I would go full on numeric short shifter, numeric cables. Change the exhaust out. I'm not sure what exhausts are available for the GT3. Change the exhaust out. Do the suspension as well. Go with the Öhlins suspension. The coilovers, do that. I mean, a bit of great exercise. If it comes with silver wheels, I get them painted as per the factory wheels with black, or buy a second set of wheels and repaint those wheels. Put some decals on it. I wouldn't paint it. I wouldn't go a la Magnus Walker and paint the decals on, the livery on, but I would get decals made up, maybe custom decals, so it actually looks really cool. I think it's a really good thing to do. If you've done this yourself, if you bought a GT3 or a Turbo and turned it into a semi-outlaw type 911, let me know in the comments. I think that's about it for today. But I think, the main thing is that the 996, that you can still get one today in a couple of years' time. In 5 years ago, I'm saying how much the prices went up. In a couple of years' time, we're probably going to be out of the market on a 996. People are going to grab this model. It's not the ugly duckling anymore. The Turbo and the GT3 prices, like I said, have suffered due to the other models and due to the engine issues and people really not knowing what they're buying and what they're looking at. People will look at the air-cooled, the 993, or they'll jump to the 997, and they've been avoiding the 996. This is changing. You can see it. You can see it online. You can see it on Instagram. You can see it on YouTube. There's a new life for the 996, and I think we've all been a little bit hard on that generation of 911, and I think we need to look at it again and seriously think about buying one. Otherwise, we're all going to have buyer's remorse. Not buyer's remorse. We're going to be thinking that's the one that got away in years to come. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this podcast today. Like I said, my name is Michael Barth. This is the PorscheCooled Podcast. I try to do one of these nearly every week. There's been a bit of a delay between those due to the coronavirus happening, and I haven't got around to it. But I try and keep one a week, try to do two if I can. Anyway, thanks for listening, and if you like the podcast, please follow me, and any comments are welcome.